This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And today I have Toby Newman with me, and I have to put out a big, you know, hurrah to a group called Podcast Match. If it weren't for this group, I don't know if I would have met Toby. But Toby has a message that we've been really trying to ingrain in all of our podcasts here at New Cleveland Radio. And that is, we all have something special about us, but sometimes we don't know what that is. And prior to going on the air today, Toby and I were talking, and Toby, you mentioned something about, when we're young, you know, we explore and we touch and we feel and we say, and it seems to be okay when we're very young to do that. But then we
Yeah.
get to a certain age and it's like, I'm going to tell you what to think, how to think, when to think. And we sort of get in that groove. Um, and then maybe we get to another part of our life that we sort of break out of that. But if it looks like a rebellion, then we don't fit in anywhere. So I liked your message that you said it begins with self awareness.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah. So first of all, welcome. Welcome. Hello, Karen. Thank you for having me on the show. So yes, self-awareness. So I like to think of it as maybe a slightly higher topic, and I'll come back to self-awareness in a second. So one of the things that I try and encourage individuals, I'm not going to talk about companies, but individuals, is to have what is kind of termed as a learning mindset. And a learning mindset is basically broken down into a number of different, you can call them skills, attributes, whatever you want to call them. But for me, they are fundamental requirements for how we not just function at work within working environment, but how we work as people. And how we interact with each other, with our communities, those kind of things. And to me, it breaks down into self-awareness, positivity, curiosity, and sharing. And if you can foster, maybe not sure if that's the right way of putting it, but if you can at least develop those areas, then you can start to grow your this learning mindset. And one of my big kind of pushes is that individuals should be responsible, like you said, individuals should be responsible for their own learning journey, because technology is moving so fast today, be it iPhones, and be it the internet, and be it TikTok and all these, and that's not including all the technology in a company that evolves. That's, you need to have that own personal drive in order to be I can't think of the right word, but to be relevant. And that sounds horrible, and I don't mean it to be a person who's not relevant, because everybody has their own relevancy. But in terms of being employed and looking for your next job and all that kind of stuff, these things are important. So self-awareness is an ability, and again, I am not the expert on self. There are many people out there that are better, that are more knowledgeable of this. But in a sense, self-awareness is about being aware of your surroundings and aware of what you're doing in those surroundings, but without critical. So you can't be critical of yourself. In other words, you can't put yourself down. So to give you an example, let's take presentation, like standing up in front of, or being on this podcast. If you're not aware of what's around you or what you're doing, you can't change anything. Now, maybe I'll give you listeners an example, and maybe you can do this as well. Have a look around the room that you're in at the moment and pick out 3 things that you've never noticed before. And it could be the way that there's, the sun shines in the room. It could be that there's a crack in the painting. It could be that there's, I don't know, an empty can on your desk that's, you like haven't touched whatever it is. But if you don't, like, let's say there's a crack in the ceiling that you never noticed. If you didn't notice it, you wouldn't fix it. So it'll always be there. And that's the same with presentation. If I'm always doing this with my hands or clicking or whatever it is, if you're not aware of it, and I use the term conscious a lot, if you're not conscious of what you're doing, you can't change anything. I believe it was the COO of Facebook. I think it was Cheryl. I can't remember her name, but she said, you can't change anything until you're aware of it. But then when you are aware of it, you can't not change it. It's that kind of inbuilt ability to go, God, I want to change this. So self-awareness is about looking at yourself, getting feedback from people you trust, and saying, what do I do this? How do I do this? And then adjusting or changing or working on those things as you go along and getting feedback and as you go along. So self-awareness is such an important thing. And people may think, oh, it's about meditation, or it's about sitting on the top of a mountain and going, that's part of it. Meditation and modern meditation, you could do a meditation in 2 minutes every day, is just sitting there and thinking, how did today go? Did I make any new friends? Did I make anybody angry? Did I say hello to everybody? It's just sitting there and thinking those things, and then thinking, oh, okay. And then you don't have to do anything about it. But the next day, when the same person comes up and says hello, in your brain, it's clicking, going, oh, you didn't say hello yesterday. Oh, so I'll say hello today. And it's by that you become, I'm not going to use the word better, because I don't think it's about better. It's about just being more aware. And then, like I said, if you're more aware, you can change things.
Well, that is such an important message, because too many of us go through life wanting things to be different. We're not paying attention to what's going on around us, other than we're saying, hey, I don't like this feeling. But we keep doing it over and over again because it seems to be easy. We don't have to think too much about it, and we just keep moving.
Or even worse is that if you find somebody that says, I can change your life, and you spend hundreds of dollars paying for somebody to you see these big speakers going, you can do this, and just say yes, and all that, and everybody goes, oh yeah, this is brilliant, yeah. And then you come out of it, and then half an hour later you go, what did they talk about? What did they say? And because it's all well and good for me or anybody else to tell you should try this, you should do this, you can do this. But unless you know it yourself and you're aware of that is a gap that you need to change and you need to do it, it's just, in one ear and out the other.
And again, doing it because you got inspired for 5 minutes is not necessarily a good reason to make a change.
It's great inspiration. I mean, that's, I'm not taking that away. There are some great inspirational speakers and talks and stuff. But I mean, I'm involved with TED Talks, TEDx Talks, those local TED Talks. And I've done one myself. And they're very inspirational. But you can very easily come out of a TED Talk or a TEDx talk and think, oh, that was great. And just think, yeah, nothing's going to change. It's whether you think, how are you going to change? I mean, to give some people maybe a tip would be, and I call it a synthesis. So the idea is that, and this is not, I mean, obviously I'm a trainer, so I talk about training, but this could be anything. The idea is that you have a piece of paper, or it could be a Post-it note or a little card. You draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, whatever you're doing, whether it be a talk that you're listening to, an activity, whatever it is, you list down the key takeaways that you have taken out of it. Not what the trainer thinks of, by the end of this session, you should take out. No, what you take out of it. Whether you like the way the person stood, whether you like the room that you're in, whatever it is, the key takeaways. And on the other side of that line, against each of those key takeaways, you write down what am I going to do to change? What am I going to do to make that best practice or that key takeaway part of a habit that I want to continue doing for forever and a day? And it's by doing those kind of practices that kind of, again, I use the word conscious. It's taking something you think, oh, that's good. Oh, I like this. And oh, I'm very inspired. And then turning it into a conscious effort to go, right, what am I actually going to do with this information and how am I going to change?
And I also think it's good for our listeners to understand that even though we may be inspired, we may make this list and say, this is, the way I want to go. Even if we don't, we can't take that as a failure because
Oh,
there's a
absolutely.
reason why we're not doing it.
Hmm.
One of our shows that we do here is called the Intentionality Gurus, and it's led by a certified trainer. She's a business coach. And a lot of the things that we talk about on that show, and she calls me her guinea pig because I'm the one that I go through all the little exercises. But since we've been doing this show for 3 years, I find myself in the middle of a podcast, grocery store, saying, wait a second, is that where I want to go?
Mm.
And sometimes I can change midstream, but
Mm.
other times I like make a note somewhere to say, that's really not the way I wanted it to be. So what can I do next time? So
And
that I,
knowing not to do something is just as powerful as knowing what to do.
right.
Because then if you know, oh, I don't want to do that, doesn't matter that you know what to do, but as long as you know that that doesn't do it for me, that doesn't sing to me or whatever you want to call it, that's a great thing. That's like a tick off your list to go, right, I know not to do that again. Your options are now narrowed in terms of what do I like to do. I've had myself a lot of people when I do these psychometric tests, they kind of go, so what's your ideal career? What's your personality type? A lot of the times those questions are focused on what you don't like. And by telling them what you don't like, it then points to what you do like.
If they know how to read them properly.
Exactly, if they know to read them, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the weekends, I do IT consulting at a big box store. And prior to getting started today, when we talked about training, you can't force training on people.
Oh God, no.
And
No. Well, you can.
well,
I just don't agree with it.
Right. Well, and I don't think you learn when it's forced on you
No,
because
it's the opposite. Yeah.
and so the company that I work for, they've really been on our case nationwide. You aren't training enough. And in the last couple of weeks, I started doing it differently. And instead of actually training, I go and I support them on either the sale that they're making or the product they're putting away or whatever it is. And then I start a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that number one, I'm relearning and I'm getting better, but they are learning something, but they don't feel like it's being forced on them.
Yeah. If they know why they're doing it and it's coming from them, it's so much more powerful. Yeah, I'm a massive believer of I actually believe that we should drop the word training altogether because, I personally don't think of myself as a trainer. I mean, I don't even class myself as a trainer. I class myself as a learning expert or usually an in-house consultant, a learning consultant, because just as your example is, that's a lot of the things I do. I work with teams, individuals, whole divisions and say, well, what do you want to get out of this? Where's your end goal? What's your expertise in this? And then work with them and guide them. I always use the analogy of an oil tanker. They're almost impossible to move on their own. So you need these little tugboats, kind of either side, just to give them little nudges along the way. And then they'll finally find their destination. I'm one of those little tugboats.
So, what got you into this field?
I suppose like many L&D people, I kind of fell into it. I used to work for Blockbusters, so the American
I
audience would
remember
know
that. Yep.
Blockbusters. As a assistant manager, I love my film, so that was kind of a perfect job for me. And it just so happened that one day I was an assistant manager, and then my manager said, "Go train those people on using the till, the cash
Right.
register." As I okay, I've never done it before, but yeah, I'll give it a go. And the look on their faces was great, but also it was that little bit of pride that after I'd shown them how to use it, when they started serving customers and doing the things that I had showed them, I was like, "Oh, I did that." I kind of helped them to do that.
Right.
And then I was my bug caught, and so yeah, 20 years later or so, I've been doing L&D in all different shapes, customer service, product training, and now it's much more around I suppose I kind of class myself as a futurist of learning, so looking at particularly platforms, so learning management systems, but more importantly learning experience platforms, and taking that next, basically finding technology that helps that learning mindset kind of dig in, I suppose is the easy way of putting it.
So a year and a half ago, we ended up in this pandemic of sorts
Oh
that
yeah.
sort of has taken a lot of people out of the working arena.
Yeah.
Now that the working arena is more open, people are hesitating. And I don't think it's necessarily they're hesitating because of the pandemic itself, but they've had this year and a half to think about what is it I really want to do.
Was
And
I
they don't,
happy? Yeah.
right. And they don't want to go back and do the jobs that we really need filled right now.
Yeah.
So what can we do as a society to, and I know it's a big question, but to get us out of this mode and say, hey, we all need to make a buck, but
Yeah.
at the same time, how do you make that dollar and still at the end of the day feel good?
Yeah. So I mean, to kind of put a point in your example, in the UK where I'm originally from, there is currently a massive demand for chefs. And the reason there is a massive demand for chefs in these I can't even say it, the culinary restaurants, is because a lot of them were laid off in this, or at least kind of on furlough, in this pandemic. And in that time, a lot of them have started their own little businesses, little takeaways, and they have now almost got back to nature in terms of back to what they loved in cooking little things for customers instantly without this, kind of the razzmatazz that comes with a gourmet restaurant. And they're happy. They're not making anywhere near as much money, but they're happy. Obviously, there is no right answer to this. And if I take my own family's example, and thankfully, kind of touch on wood, we weren't badly affected by the pandemic in terms of losing our jobs. But my wife wasn't happy at her job. And she took the decision in this, like you said, had time to think in the pandemic about what she really wanted. And so she quit a job and became a financial influencer on social media and gets paid to do posts, to do articles with banks about, everything from Bitcoins to, how to save money in your shopping, all those little things. So she's not like a financial advisor, but she's what they call them, I can't remember the term, but a financial influencer.
Okay.
Slightly different. But so and this is kind of where my point is that she didn't just think, boom, I'm going to do, we've got now what was a 2-year-old, now a 3-year-old. We've got a house and mortgage and stuff. Now, obviously, it helps that she loves her finance anyway, but she made a decision based on the finances. So what we did is we kind of took all our bills. We kind of spent a couple of hours looking at all our bills and thinking, what are the minimums? What can we renegotiate? What can we put up with? What can we not put up with? What are our minimums? Like we were saying before about being conscious about what you need and all that kind of stuff, is what do we want? What can I put up with? What do I don't have to do? And we came up with this long list, and we basically worked out that yes, she could do it. And if it didn't work out, she'd find a part-time job or whatever. So I suppose to answer your question, that there's a couple of things I would say. First of all is take advantage of online learning. Now, I don't mean e-learning courses. While that is part of it, those kind of click, 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 boring, whatever. I hate those ones myself. But there are lots of talks. There are lots of TED Talk being one, but just talks on different technology. One of my friends has decided he's a data analyst at the moment, and he's going to be a software developer, and he can do that all on his own without having to go back to university or college, taking courses, looking at free stuff, finding out in your network who's an expert in this area. LinkedIn is great for that. Who are the experts in that? Get their help, because people are, I think what this pandemic has done in if you can call it a positive, is increase the communities. And I'm thinking online communities rather than personal ones, because we're all locked down and stuff. But online communities, people are kind of opening up their hearts, opening up their expertise, and more willing to give up the time to share their knowledge, to help others. And I think that's, now obviously given the choice, I'd rather have all those people alive than not have this community.
Right.
But we are where we are. So that for me is one positive. So I think if you're in that situation, there is, don't be afraid to reach out on LinkedIn, communities on LinkedIn, communities on bullet boards in your local area, courses, talks. If you let's say you find a talk, you think, oh, that's really interesting, see who's attended it and look them all up on LinkedIn and connect with them all, and start growing your network. Because once you start connecting people on LinkedIn, then other people who are connected to that person will see you, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you get more exposure. So that would be the first thing. Invest in yourself and invest in your network. And then you've got to go with what makes you happy, but also you've got to, do that financial conscious effort. Don't just think, F everybody else, I'm going to quit. Fine, you can do that, but I just don't have the guts to do that kind of thing.
Neither do
I. But there are things that you maybe didn't think of that you can live without. Like for example, we downsized our car, and we went from a big 4x4 down to a little kind of Suzuki Alto. It's kind of little 2-people cars, and it does what we need it. We cut out the gym, and then we kind of did running instead, free, in the park and all that kind of stuff. So there are things you can do to help you along the way. But again, it's that conscious effort of what can I live without? What do I do? What can't I live without? And be honest with yourself. If you can't live without that Frappuccino every day, then don't do it. Keep it, because that will only make you more unhappy than you were before. So don't kill yourself kind of cutting things out. But I suppose, as we say, where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't realize I was doing this 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, I was working in corporate America. I loved my position. It was the people around me that I just wasn't connecting to. Part of it was age, but a lot of it was more culture. And when I realized I wasn't doing the best job I could do anymore, I came home and I talked to my husband and I said, I'm now miserable when I go into work. And I'm making other people miserable. And that affects,
because it affects everybody. I mean, if you're unhappy at work, whether it be, you know, that you're just, like I said, like not connecting, or if it's a, you know, a toxic environment, then, you know, your energy goes down, your relatives, your, you know, other half, it affects them, your kids, and yeah, your mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's important to kind of keep a check of that.
But I want our listeners to know that it has nothing to do with age, because you can change
Mm.
whenever you are ready. Okay. I'm not going to change because my husband says I have to change. I know sometimes that would be good on his point to say, yeah. Um, but we can't
But in the
expect.
long run, if you change because what he thinks he wants, then, you know, I've been in relationships where I've changed because they want me to
Right.
change, and then they're like, no, 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 I don't, I don't
Yeah.
like
Go
it like
back to
this.
who you were.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, you split up because
I
like they're
love
like,
it.
oh no, I fell in love, or you feel it was attracted to that other person.
Well, so if people want to get in touch with you because they want to learn more, or they want to find something that's going to connect them, how can they
Hmm.
do that?
So my I suppose alter ego, I suppose is the best way of putting it, is the never ending learner. For those who are at a certain age, maybe remember the book and the film, The Never Ending Story. It's one
Yes.
of my favorites. And that's kind of where it came from. And so you know, I've got neverendinglearner.com. I'm on YouTube. I've got my fledgling channel. If people want to check out, when people want to have a laugh on an afternoon, they can check out some of my videos. And that's just the Never Ending Learner on YouTube. And feel my profile on LinkedIn is open. Feel free to connect. You know, ask questions. Happy to help where I can.
And you brought up something interesting that many of us don't do the way we should, and that is connect. We're always, I wouldn't say always, but even for myself, when I started podcasting 10 years ago, I was willing to ask people questions. I was willing to ask, you know, can I just do it from my computer? Do I need a soundboard? Do I need a microphone? What do I need? And how much money? And 10 years ago, people just did not want to talk about it because they wanted to be at the top. And if they
Yeah,
gave you any
it was all
information,
insular. You like keep it to me. Yeah, my knowledge, me. Yeah.
and I'm finding today that there are more people in the people business that are willing to share,
Yeah.
because it's the networking is what's going to grow all of us. And so I can't stress that enough. Um, if somebody's going to take something away from you, that means you gave it to them. And
Well, that's good.
sometimes, and
That's a good way
sometimes
of putting
giving
it. Yeah.
something to somebody is rewarding.
Hmm.
So,
And that's like why I like doing these things. I mean, people say, you know, oh, I should charge for what I'm doing, or like all these different things, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. I just want to, you know, help people, and I think, you know, like I said, in this, you know, well, hopefully post-ish pandemic, is that people are appreciating that the communities, both physically and in online, are what's going to shape us. And I think we have to appreciate, you know, I talked at the start about technology moving so fast, is that the next generation, our kids, this is going to be natural. Their online personality is their personality. Whereas
exactly.
for us, it was like, oh, connecting with people, I'm not sure, kind of thing. For them, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Uh,
I
so
know,
we kind of have to
yeah,
embrace it.
I know growing up for me, it was talking on the phone. Okay.
Yeah,
But you didn't have that visual of that person, you know?
yeah.
Um, and then once, we got phones that have pictures and we can see each other. Our lives have totally changed. But you're right. This younger generation, uh, their communication, even their dating is online.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, it's
and
weird. My one of my colleagues was telling me a story that his kid was always on the PlayStation playing online games and stuff, and he said to his son, "Go outside and play. You know, kind of don't watch the TV and the computer so much." And he said, but if I go outside, I'll be alone. All my friends are, I'm playing with my friends online. And it just really clicked with me. Just like, that is the, when I used to go out and play football, soccer with my friends, that was my community.
Right.
But nowadays, Fortnite, Call of Duty, whatever it is, they're your friends, and you share intimately, potentially with those, and you probably know them better than your next door neighbor.
Absolutely. You are right. So times have changed. We have to
Mm.
embrace that.
Mm.
So, for those of you who are actually watching this on YouTube, not listening to it on audio, behind Toby, there's this beautiful setting of the Grand Canyon and him sitting on a big rock. Um, so, I'm assuming that you love to be out in nature.
um, I do. I mean, I'm where I'm based at the moment. We don't have too much nature. My feet give me a lot of ache, just because the way my kind of bones are from when I was young. So walking a lot is not great, but um, I love, especially the American, kind of nature. Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, all the massive national parks. For me, it's that kind of, I appreciate nature. Maybe that's the better way of putting
Okay.
it. But I wouldn't say that I, go out for hikes every day or every month, or go on holiday and hike. But if I've driven across the states at least, I think 3 times, 4 times now, and like kind of Route 66 and Death Valley and Grand Canyon, all the cities and stuff. It's amazing what nature can do.
Absolutely.
I think that's just, for me, it's just, it puts you in your place, I think. And
It,
I think for me at least, I think I need that every now and again to kind of go, yeah, you're actually a bit insignificant.
well,
In a nice way.
we live right in the middle of the national park here in Northeast Ohio. And
Nice.
so when I get a chance, if I'm not in a rush, even just to go to the grocery store, I will actually drive through the park so I can appreciate
Yeah.
the scenery.
Yeah.
And I have
And then,
friends.
like you were saying at the start, people put their head down and they don't really appreciate what's around us. And it's another example is that just taking that. I think we mentioned the meditation. Even if it's just sitting on a park bench for a minute and just kind of not like closing your eyes, but just kind of have a look around and just think how amazing nature. And like you talk about the Grand Canyon, water and air did that. And you'd like, if you kind of just think for a second how massive that is. I mean, obviously pictures don't do it justice.
Right.
um, but to think that water can, and a bit of wind and rain can make that is just mind-blowing. It's incredible.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Toby Newsom, for joining us today.
Oh, it's
Um,
been my pleasure.
we're going to put all your information in the show notes. So there is no excuse for anyone not to be able to follow you. Um, and I hope to have you back on one of our other shows as well, because
Oh,
your
happily.
message is it's immense. And one of the things we say here at New Cleveland Radio, we don't think of ourselves as experts necessarily in the subject, but we're experts of our own life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
being an expert of our own life, we get to look at it and say, am I going to go left, right, straight, or am I going to turn around?
Mm.
We have those choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I don't class myself as an expert. I'm a passionate L&D person. I'm passionate about learning, and I like to point people in give them options.
it is wonderful.
And yeah,
Well,
but
and
no, it's been a pleasure.
thank you. And best of luck to your wife with her project. I mean, um, when we talk about finances, most of us, hide under our desk because we really don't want to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And
But
if you want to look it up, it's
sure.
One Broke Girl. It is in Dutch because she's Dutch.
Okay.
Because her audience is Dutch, but Google Translate. If you find One Broke Girl, onebrokedgirl.nl
Okay.
is her website. She has her own podcast show. Again, it's in Dutch, so that probably wouldn't help. But the blog that she does, she's recording a course at the moment on tips and how to help people. So go check her out and say hi.
I absolutely will. And I hope our listeners will. Have a great day, and we will talk again soon.
And you. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.